the shifts of life to shape you, then there is a problem. Now there is some story about some type of a fish is called an oyster fish. And then there is this precious gem called a pearl. Now pearl is very precious and very rare and very expensive. Sometimes meeting gold is easy. And I know most of us, if you have encountered gold, is maybe through a glass. You did not touch gold one-on-one. But when it comes to pearl, it's so precious and it is very rare to find. But if you look at the formation of pearl, it is something that is formed in the system of an oyster fish. Now, the most weird part of any living thing are the intestines. Even a chicken, you enjoy chicken when intestines have been removed, because that is the most dirty part of any kind of a living animal. And so when you talk about a pearl, a precious gem being formed inside an oyster fish, that tells us that when life gives you lemon, it is your responsibility to make a lemonade out of what life brings to you. So it is possible that a shift may come, and if you are not careful, you will go down and down and down and not get what you want, because you've allowed the shift to take you the direction that the shift has taken. But what we are reminded as children of God from the story of an oyster fish, that even through the most dirty part of an animal, we can still get a gem. And so even when things are tough, sometimes at home you don't even know where the school fee is going to come from. You are sent home to go and bring school fee, and the first thing you meet, there is no food in the house. You don't even know how to tell your mother that I need money to go to school. Because if they can't afford 100 shillings for a skuma wiki and ugali, then where is 10,000 going to come from? But you are reminded from the book of Romans that all things work together for good. There is a God in heaven who watches our situations and is able to make a shift that looks weird to be a shift that looks good. Because shifts can be either negative or positive. And all things work together for good. Now for Mephibosheth, it was a negative shift, because from becoming a prince, he became a man who was lame on both feet. Now, one interesting thing about Israel that time, that there are some kind of people who are not supposed to stay in Jerusalem. That the lame, those who have serious challenges in the society, there was a place that is meant for them. Like, let me use the example, if you go to places like Nairobi, there are estates that belongs to certain people. You can't just find yourself in a certain estate. There are ghettos, there are slums, they are good places. You know, good is also relative. For example, you may be coming from what you think is good until you meet someone who comes from what is better. That is when you realize that your good is not really good. But in life, sometimes we may find ourselves in situations like Mephibosheth, who was a prince but found himself in a weird place. In verse 4, Ziba tells the king, Ziba tells the king that there is one son who is left, and his name is lame on both feet. Verse 4, and the king said unto him, where is he? And Ziba said unto the king, behold, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Amiel in Lodebar. Now during those days, Lodebar was like a ghetto. It was a place that had those who were unschooled, those who were lame, those who were despised in the society. And so Ziba is telling the king that the man you're looking for is not worth being killed. Number one is lame on both feet. Number two is dwelling in Lodebar. I don't know how your life is. Sometimes when you look at your life as a young person, when you sit down and call yourself to a meeting, you say, I don't think there is a future here. The next thing you think about is, I am not like others. You know, when you're dressed in a uniform, people may think you are the same. But if you go back to the dormitory, you realize that things are different. Vitu ni tofauti kwa ground. Ukienda kwa class, you get things are different. And you look at yourself and you feel like, is there anything better for me? Life has reduced me so much so that I don't have two legs. And as if that is not enough, it has taken me to Lodebar, just like it did to Mephibosheth. But I want to remind us that when life takes us to the extreme and our God is still on the throne, he can take our lives back to another extreme for the glory and honor of his holy name. Because when Ziba and the rest of the people would look at Mephibosheth, he was like a dead dog, like he would call himself, and he was set to remain in Lodebar for the rest of his life as he waits for his death. But when David remembered the covenant that he had with his friend Jonathan, then he said, I want to show someone kindness for the sake of my friend Jonathan. And he gets Mephibosheth that life had taken to the other extreme. And so I will not read all the verses, but if you read down, David gives an order that go bring him to Jerusalem. Now that one was very odd. You can imagine, let me limit it to our president now in our country. Then you get an order that you be picked, you be taken to the State House today. Now it is not something small. If the president wants to show you kindness, you will not go there and pick Easy Coach to Nairobi. Okay? A convoy will be sent to come and pick you and take you to Kisumu. You take a flight to go to Nairobi, and then you're picked, you're taken to the president. And this man is lame on both feet and is living in Lodebar. And then the king sent his men to go and pick Mephibosheth to bring him to Jerusalem, because he knew that it is life that had taken him to Lodebar, but he was supposed to remain in Jerusalem. I want to remind you that God knows your situation. Sometimes you may want to give up as a young person because you feel that no one understands you. When you talk to your teachers, they don't understand you. When you talk to your parents, they don't understand you. When you talk to yourself, you don't even understand yourself. But I want to tell you that God who created you understands you. And that is why God brought you to this school. There are others whom you did primary school with. They did not find an opportunity to come to a high school. And you see, most of us, we come here and then we begin to play around with life. I don't know about this school, but I remember when I was in high school, we had two groups of people. I don't want to say my school, but there are those who are coming from Nairobi and then those who are coming from Homa Bay. They were in a different class with others who are villagers. And they were very stubborn. Now, me, I was in the group of villagers. And these people from Nairobi and people from Homa Bay were so stubborn that others who would come from Kobodo will also act like they're coming from Homa Bay or Nairobi so that they look important in school. And that is what we do when you come to high school. You forget about your background and then you get to some class that you don't belong. And instead of working hard to make a difference in your home, you're working hard to match those who are not in your social class. And that is what we do with life as young people. And it is a great confusion that we also don't understand, or we don't understand, because we struggle to belong where we are not. I have come to remind us that let's understand ourselves as young people and know that this is the only opportunity you have to make a difference in your life. You will either use it well and make a difference positively, or misuse it and make a negative change in your life. And I want to remind you that there is nothing that is happening in our lives that is so complicated that God cannot fix. And it tells us that any kind of shift that happens, He is able to turn it for the glory and honor of His name. And so Mephibosheth is brought to Jerusalem and stays with the king. And we are told, I want to come to the last verse, that is verse 13. So Mephibosheth dwelt in Jerusalem, for he did eat continually at the king's table and was lame on both his feet. Mephibosheth is brought from Lodebar, is taken back to Jerusalem. And the Bible reminds us that for the rest of his life, he dwelt in Jerusalem. And he would eat from the king's table continually. Now that tells us something. You know, when you're seated in a dining, like that table there, the others who are seated this side and others who are seated on the other side, are you able to notice the legs of the people who are seated at the dining? Can you see the legs? So you can't know who is lame on both feet and who is not lame. And that is the grace of God. That is what God does for His children. That He will take you from that which looks extreme, and He'll take you to a life that He will cover that which the world had taken away from you. But if the world takes you to a different shift, that you feel like I am so worthless, I'm so useless, it doesn't make sense, then God will take you to Jerusalem. And continually, you'll eat from the king's table. So that when you are seated with the sons of the king, no one will notice that this is lame on both feet, because at the dining, no feet is noticed. And I've come to remind us that the Lord has good plans for each and every one of us. And that is why the book of Romans reminds us,